When dealing with a falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
I gotta say, I'm loving that new intro.
Dave, did you make that?
Yeah.
Good job.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's fucking badass.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Hi, and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast, Skeptic Studio, the interview portion of the Brainstorm Podcast. I'm Cory, and my panel tonight are Angela.
Hello.
Lisa.
Can I be badass too?
No, you're a doctor.
That's right. Brandon.
Hello.
Rene.
Hello.
And, of course, the always amazing Dave doing sound.
Yes, as I proved with my intro.
That's right.
Always amazing.
We're here in Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is May 11th, 2018. Tonight, we're talking to Ian Harris, the skeptical comedian. Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
So
I guess all comedians are kind of skeptical.
I hope so.
We tried to have you on last week, but we couldn't make things work, but we got it going this time. So that's good.
Yeah, it was the the Illuminati had conspired to stop the
right.
signal.
Definitely.
Gotta hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want too
they're
many
always
of
on
us
to me.
people who are hashtag woke knowing getting together and talking.
Yeah, what happened is that when I found out that there was no such thing as satellites because the Earth is flat, my computer went down.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
That'll do it.
You know how that works.
Yeah.
It worked until I found out. Then what? It just doesn't work anymore.
That's what always happened to Wile E. Coyote when he realized there was no more cliff. He fell.
That's right.
Exactly.
As soon as you look down, in this case, you look up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess a good place to start is like, how did you get into comedy?
Well, that's all I've done pretty much my entire life, professional career, since I was able to get into the comedy club. And it's what I've wanted to do since I was very young. I started doing impressions accidentally when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I used to just talk in other people's voices. And I was really into fighting and boxing when I was a kid. So I used to walk around as a kid impersonating Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali. And and my parents thought it was hilarious, so they just encouraged it. And then I I've just been doing that my whole life. And then when I was in high school, I saw that there were people like Dana Carvey and Eddie Murphy and Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest and all these guys making a living on Saturday Night Live doing what I did every day. And I was like, oh, you can make a living doing this? So
Cool.
yeah. So I just been doing comedy ever since.
Nice.
Ever since I was old enough to get on stage.
That's awesome.
And you're kind of dubbed as the skeptical comedian. So how long have you been into skepticism?
Well, I've been pretty much, I would say I've been a skeptic on some level my whole life. I mean, I've always been an atheist. It's strange because my mom is to this day is a self-proclaimed psychic. So I grew up with like the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and I grew up with all this that kind of nonsense stuff. And my dad was basically an atheist, but he wouldn't have called himself an atheist. I don't think if you asked him, he'd just be like, it's a bunch of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like that was
Right.
basically my dad's, and like when I was 7 years old, I was at a friend's house and I was going to go to church because my friends were going to church, and I called my dad. I said, hey, can you bring me over some nice clothes or something? I guess we're going to church tomorrow. My dad goes, no, I'll rescue you before that. So I grew up thinking it was all BS. And my mom is not like wacky crazy. too much. She just, she believes she's psychic and does readings and that sort of stuff. She's not completely outer limits or anything, but she's, that's kind of part of her. She's new agey. She's like 70s, 60s new agey type person, and has always been so. She's kind of vaguely Hindu, but she's, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I love vague Hindus.
Babe, you know what I mean? Like she
totally
would say, I'm Hindu, but she's gone to India and she'll go to like an ashram and she had an Indian themed wedding like that kind of thing. But it's kind of all in the name of spiritualism and the universal consciousness kind of a deal. And the, the Course of Miracles and the, what is that? Like the Secret, all that kind of like.
Definitely. Manifestation.
That kind of thing. Manifestation thing. Exactly.
Kind of the definition of woo.
But it's such
the warm and fuzzy woo.
But it's such a woman baby boomer thing. Do you know what I mean? It's such an Oprah Winfrey sort of like like thing. Like my mom's the same. My mom's the same. Like she doesn't think she's psychic, but it's like, I know you don't believe in this, but I had prayed for you anyways. But if she's not that religious, like, I'm not religious, just spiritual, right? And all that. Anyways,
right.
You may not want to tell her you're interviewing with us.
Oh no, she knows all about, and she actually said something the other day about, I posted something on Facebook and she said something like about, it really doesn't seem like there could possibly be any sort of God out there kind of a thing. And I think she's almost, it's weird. It's like she's almost an atheist. She kind of believes in some sort of a universal, like she believes in energy and matter and this kind of thing, but she just puts a little bit of like consciousness to it. You know what I mean? It's just like it's in between what would almost be a scientific thing and woo. It's like somewhere floating in between there that's kind of fuzzy.
Just a
kind of make you feel good.
And that's how they get you with the woo, though. They like give you a granule of scientific data, and then there's like they just like they put a nice fluffy ball of woo around it.
They'll take something old like Buddhist philosophy, which may be totally secular and has nothing to do with what I don't know, like the idea that our thoughts make us crazy, and we know you need to be able to realize that your thoughts are not you or whatever. Things that help you mentally have nothing to do with whatever God. But then you'll get, what's his name? Who's that guy who's crazy? Deepak Chopra. Deepak Chopra, and he'll kind of pilfer from or Eckhart Tolle. How do you say his name? That guy.
Yeah,
that kind of new agey shit.
Yeah, and then they call it quantum physics.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's actually just like 2,000-year-old Buddhist philosophy. That's like, we create our own suffering. Like, yeah, we do. That's true. Like, but it sounds so true. I mean, it is. Anyways, it's very wise.
Yeah. Then they take it literal. They take it literally and like put some sort of literal. No, you can actually manifest things with your thoughts. And it's like, when I get into arguments with people and they're like, so you don't believe in positive thinking? I'm like, no, positive thinking is great. I believe in all that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Think about what you want to do. Write it down. Visualize it. Whatever you want to do, that's great. But don't think that means it's going to magically come to you. That might be a good way for you to focus on getting to your goals. But sitting on the couch, thinking about winning the lottery isn't going to make the lottery.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that they don't understand, too, is when you're focusing on a certain thing, if you're focusing on doing awesome at something, chances are you're going to be awesome at something because you're thinking about being awesome at something as opposed to being shitty at something.
And arguably, that causes more suffering, psychological suffering, because it's like, okay, you have cancer, you need to have some more positive thinking. You're never going to be cured if you don't think positively about it. Now you're putting the onus for your cancer on your attitude, as though, that has anything to do with anything. You know what I mean? And at some point, like,
you died from cancer because you weren't positive enough.
But it honestly is a thing. It's an honest thing.
That's right. That's right.
You didn't pray hard enough. That's why you got the cancer.
But you know what I mean, though? Like,
it's
not fair.
Yeah, you got the flu because you had a shitty day and you cried.
Yeah, it's like weird. It's some sort of weird self-victim blaming. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
So do you do stand up? How often do you get to do your shtick?
I did it. So basically, long story long. Apparently, the way I got to doing skeptical comedy is I've always been a skeptic. I've always been an atheist. I've been a comedian since I was old enough to get on stage. But I didn't always do specifically skeptical comedy. Like I always had a hint of it. There's always, if you look all the way back to my first time on stage, I have a joke about God, or I have a joke about, psychics or Bigfoot, or I've got all jokes about that kind of stuff that I think was silly, because that's where my brain is. It's like, wow, people believe this. That's hilarious. But I also talked about my family and relationships and all the other stuff that comedians talk about. And then I 2006, I guess, I took about 5 years off comedy. I was doing a bunch of other things. We had a kid. I didn't want to be, I was on the road like 40 weeks out of the year. And I was like, I don't want to be on the road all this time. And I had been doing, I had a fight gym. I was doing voiceover work. I was directing, stuff for, music videos and films and stuff like that. And I said, I don't need this anymore. So I decided to like take a small step back, which ended up being like a 5-year hiatus where I didn't do any comedy. I had also had trouble with the industry. I had been like banned from several comedy festivals for being too mouthy. And things like that.
Controversial.
I won't repeat. Yeah. But I used to think that I still think so, but on some level, I think that people should be called out for their bullshit. And, so I like to do that on stage. And apparently the people who book television shows and comedy festivals don't like it when you point out their bullshit from the stage during their their festival.
That's not that surprising.
Yes. I thought it would have been funny and appreciated. I was wrong on several occasions.
Like, fuck you, Chad. Email me back already.
People in power don't like you calling them out on stage.
What the hell are roasts for? Like, that's what a roast is.
But you're not roasting the producer of the roast.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because all the producers are like, cut, that's it, and it's gone, and it's done.
Yeah.
And usually
I just
a lot of
always
those
thought it was
jokes
funny when
are
they're like,
approved of first. But
well, yeah, but I always thought it was funny because you always hear that these producers and these bookers and these agents and whoever, and they're like, yeah, I love Lenny Bruce. I love Bill Hicks. I love how edgy they were and how they didn't take any shit from anybody. They called it like it is. And then you go and do that, and they're like, not in my house. Get out of here. You're like, what the hell? I thought you just said you love Lenny Bruce.
But I was being edgy.
Yeah.
The people who had Lenny Bruce. Yeah, the people who had Lenny Bruce and Bill Hicks in their clubs also did that. They were like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, Lenny Bruce was arrested how many times?
Yeah, exactly. So then when I basically decided to I really wanted to. I just got on stage one night and wanted to get back into comedy for a few reasons. Like, my daughter was at like 5 or 6 at this point, and she had never seen me do comedy. Didn't identify with me as a comedian, and I identified solely as a comedian. So here I have a kid who doesn't even know what I do or who I who I believe I am or who I feel I am. So I said, well, I'm going to do comedy one time, and I'm going to bring her. So I brought her to an open mic at a coffee shop in LA, and I did comedy, and I was like, I'm just going to start getting back up on stage for fun. And because there was nothing tied to it, I didn't have to make a living doing it. I didn't have 40. I didn't have to like please the establishment anymore. I'm like, I'm just going to say whatever the hell I want to say. Right. So I just started going up and ranting about Christians and talking about people I thought were stupid, basically. Like, that was kind of my thing. Like, you people don't believe in science? What's wrong with you? Like that. And all of a sudden, like within a year, I had 2 hours of new material, and I got offered to do this comedy special thing, and I taped it, and it went really well. And then I just kept doing it. And then I started trying to get back into comedy clubs and realized they're not going to book me doing this because I walk half their crowd. So I started booking my own shows. And just going to a comedy club that I used to work at, I'd go to a Wednesday through Saturday at a club and say, in Portland or in Seattle, who were like, you're not coming here doing 45 minutes of atheist material. Sorry. If you go back to your old act, we'll book you, but we're not going to book you like that. And they'd say, well, we'll give you a Sunday night, but it's your show. You have to pack the room. And if you don't bring anybody, you owe us money, kind of a thing. So I started doing that and reaching out to all the skeptic and atheist groups in each city and busting my ass to sell 200 tickets on a show and get people out. Wow. And pretty soon they started calling me going, hey, you want to do this convention? Hey, you want to do this, somebody be in the show, and then, oh, we're doing the American Atheist thing. You want to come host it? Sure. And then, oh, we're doing this, this and that. And so eventually I got to where I was like one of like 2 comics that basically did every atheist convention, and then I ended up getting to do the Reason Rally and the CFI convention and all these things because I did comedy that was geared to them. And when I would do my shows, I would just invite all of them out, everybody in that town that was a skeptic or an atheist. And a lot of times they would come out, although it's very hard to get nonconformists to do anything as a group.
Yes.
I find it kind of weird that you're having problems with that. Like, because there are a fair number of comedians that are atheists, but I guess they've breached over that threshold. Like I was thinking like Jim Jeffries and Ricky Gervais and George Carlin had a lot of atheist material over the decades.
It seems almost mainstream in some ways.
So you
the thing is that sorry, go ahead.
You don't do a lot of yoga retreats then?
Yeah, exactly. No, not a lot.
He's only done one psychic convention, and they saw that coming.
Yeah, exactly. Every punchline, they laughed before I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the problem is that the thing is there's probably, I would say there's a disproportionate amount of atheists in comedy. Per the, like if I had to guess, I'd say 40% of comedians are probably atheists and some sort of random. I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there, but the thing is that there are a lot of comedians that are atheists and they don't talk about it, or there are comedians that talk about it for a joke or two. Jim Jeffries has one or two jokes that made him go viral, but when you watch Jim Jeffries' show, you might see 5 or 10 minutes about God, and then you might see 40 minutes, 50 minutes about his wife or his best friend or going to the bathroom or whatever else he's doing. Ricky Gervais, came to comedy much later. So Ricky Gervais was already a major celebrity, major superstar who could get his first time on stage was probably a theater with 20,000 people in it. So,
True, yeah.
So he could get away with whatever he wanted because he's Ricky Gervais. Everyone already knew what he was about and he was already super, super famous. Carlin didn't really get into that doing skepticism type stuff till really his last 2 comedy specials. His last one, It's Bullshit and It's Bad For You, was phenomenal, but he was 70.
Yeah, that's true. His last couple were good, but that was definitely his bitter old man
Maybe
stage.
he just wanted to make sure that nobody said bullshit about how he's looking down on us from heaven at his funeral. He just wanted to make sure nobody would say,
but
establish that late.
Carlin did say when you die, you're going to be a frisbee that just gets thrown onto a roof.
He's a Presbyterian.
Presbyterian, that's what I was
say that. My dad used to say that to me. Every people would ask him what his religion was, and if there's one quote there's two quotes that I could say anytime you ask my dad a question. The 2 things he would always say: you'd ask him what political party, and he'd always say, "I don't belong to any organized political party. I'm a Democrat." And you asked him what his religion was, and he'd say, "I'm a Presbyterian. I believe when you die, your soul goes up on the roof and no one can get it down." Yeah. And he would say those 2 things over and over and over.
Funny the first time, not so funny the millionth time. I know that kind of dad joke.
Exactly. I think David Cross is brilliant when he does his religious material, and I wish he would do it all the time.
Yeah.
But, he'll do 15 minutes of it, and then he goes off and does something else, which is equally brilliant. I love David Cross, but it's like he could have easily just taken that road and said, "I'm atheist comedian," but he's not. He's David Cross. He's alty. He does his own thing, and a lot of atheists love him, and he really has a really tight handle on that. But he also doesn't reach out to the community. He doesn't try to work this. He never did any of the conventions or never did any of the stuff for the atheist community specifically. He just happens to be an atheist who's a great comic who talks about religion quite a bit in his act. So yeah, I mean, I think the only other guy I can really think of that really does something similar to what I do on some level is Keith Lowell Jensen, who also does a lot of atheist material.
Yeah.
Who's the lady who made the thing and the big long monologue and damn it, it's all about how she became an atheist, letting go of God?
Julia Sweeney?
Is she she stand up?
Yeah. Well, she
no,
does.
she's more of a sketch actress, and then Letting Go of God was like a one-woman show.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
She was
It's funny as hell. It's funny as hell. But.
Yeah, she's great. And Leanne Lord is a phenomenal comic. And she's an atheist, and she does atheist stuff. Like she and I do Dragon Con together every year. And she's done the American Atheist Conference and things like that. And she can do an hour of atheist or skeptic material, no problem. But she also does regular stuff. Like if she's worked at a club in New York, she can just do regular comedy and kill it for however long she needs to be up there. So I don't think she puts herself in that category of I am an atheist. I am the female atheist comic, whatever the deal is.
Right.
But she's definitely known in the community, and she definitely can play to this community and does play to this community is a lot. But it's not all she does, you know?
Okay, here's something I've always wanted to ask a stand-up comedian. Okay, it looks like fucking hard. How fucking hard is it? It looks so hard.
You know, I think it's funny because people always ask that question. It's not like
We didn't say anything.
I fucking hate you so.
It's like, did you sort of realize
you can go fuck yourself, and you can go fuck yourself.
I said nothing.
And Dave, the man behind the curtain.
We actually run like a 5-night a week comedy circuit. Just Lisa's never come.
It is National Masturbation Month.
She didn't know about how we're like the
I hate
rotating
you all.
lineup at what is it again? Where do we all do comedy at?
Okay. How difficult is it
to be
honestly, I think it's as difficult as anything. I mean, your first day on a job, or your first day in school, or your first week, first month, first year is always difficult. But then eventually, it's you've got to find new ways to make it not just punching the clock. You know, I think also it's easier for some, like anything. It's like athletics. I mean, some people are really, really good. You know, say you're a basketball player. You're either really good at basketball innately, like just naturally. Some people bust their ass and they get really good. Some people bust their ass and they become okay. Some people are naturally good and they bust their ass and they become phenomenal. And some people are naturally good. They don't bust their ass and they stay naturally good, but not great. So I think it's kind of one of those things where.
Have you gone through all the possible permutations there?
No, let me think if there's any more.
Somebody can be really shitty and then get super
and
good.
They could bust their ass and get kind of good, and then.
But what if they got really good? They could also get really good. You forgot that one.
Yeah, no,
they could be shitty and stay shitty. What if somebody shitty doesn't try it all, but then gets really good? Sorry. Sorry.
No, I just think that it's there's a lot of it's an art and a lot of it's a skill, and I think the skill part you can learn and you can get better at with time and with repetition. And then the art part is just something you're good at. You're either natural on stage, you get the flow of things, or you don't. But anyone can learn to do the nuts and bolts of comedy with time. And I just think it's a matter of whether or not you're comfortable on stage or not. And sometimes that's natural, and sometimes that takes time to do. But it's like anything else, you eventually get good at it. Hopefully.
So can you just be like somebody's like, oh, hey man, you're here. Oh, great. Can you just go do a set? Can you do that? Would you be able to somebody just grabbed you?
Yeah. I mean, I would, go ahead. Sorry.
No, whatever. You're at a club and then they're like, oh no, our dude just had a heart attack. We need somebody to fill in. You
could you just do that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would take a few minutes to like write down what I was going to do. Cause you need to know how much time you're doing. But I mean, everything is bits that have been written out and, labored over and done a million times and worked out. So it's like, if they say, we need you to do 15 minutes, I can go, okay, that's joke X, Y, Z. And then maybe I close with this joke, and I may have to write it down so I remember what order I'm going to do things in. But I mean, even if they said just jump up there, I'm sure I could probably rattle through any number of, I've got hours of material from doing this my whole life. So I could probably, if somebody said, go up there right now and do an hour. If I had 5 minutes to write down my set list, I could go up there and do an hour, no problem. But if
wow.
If you said do 10 minutes, I could do off the top of my head. Sure.
Cool. Do you find like you kind of set yourself apart as an atheist / skeptic comedian, and do you find that it's limiting, or do you find that it's you haven't necessarily, because people are somewhat hesitant to book you in certain areas because of your subject material? Do you find that it's limiting and that you aren't as prosperous doing comedy as you could be?
No, I mean, I think that's a yes. There's a yes and a no to that. I think currently there's something to that, but I think in the long run, it's way more prosperous and it's way better because nowadays you really need to build your own niche. You need to have your own thing because it's the days of just working regular comedy clubs. There's 10,000 comedians out there. Yeah. I mean, I've looked to get into clubs and I look at their roster and they don't have anybody I've ever even heard of. And I'm a comedian for 26 years. And I'm like, I don't even know this person. And I call and I can't even get the person. It takes me 3 years to get somebody on the phone. And they're like, yeah, we don't really want to book you. I'm like, you're going to pay $800 this week. I wouldn't even want that gig anyway. Like, it's crazy how hard it is to get into just shitty clubs.
Yeah. So
for me, it's as just a regular comic. Meanwhile, if you have something, if you're on a, like I know people that just do gay and lesbian shows and there's like this separate gay and lesbian circuit. And if they're little mini celebrities within that group and they do great, like they're household names in that group, they can sell 1,000 tickets at a theater, no problem. Whereas a regular club might not book them, not because of their content, but just because they're not famous to regular people.
Yeah.
Into their when I mean like regular in their regular audience, they're just average person in their genre, they are famous. So for me, it's there are certain groups that really stick to, like if you're Hispanic, if you're a Latino comic and you're on like a Latino comedy tour, you're probably going to get all those fans. They really like Latino fans love Latino comics.
George Lopez.
Yeah. I mean, look at all those people that back in the 90s and early 2000s, George Lopez, Carlos Mencia, what they call it, Gabriel Iglesias, all these people, that opened for George. Now they're famous. And then somebody opens for them and now they're famous because those fans are ravenous about that style of comedy.
Yeah.
So if you're in that group, but regular, like whatever, cisgendered, heterosexual white dudes,
Dane
nobody
Cook.
gives a shit, especially white dudes. No white guys like, oh, white guy comedy. Let's go see white guy comedy. Nobody gives a crap.
You're not
so
from
I can't be like, it's the white guy comedy tour. People are like, yeah, that's every comedy tour. Shut up. You know what I mean? So you have to have something.
Well, there might be a specific niche, but that's kind of getting into alt-right crap.
Yeah, you don't want to join the alt-right. And
sorry to derail.
There is an audience
for
that here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah,
there
that's
is.
true.
But is Dane Cook just like really, really unfunny, or is it just me? Like really painfully.
Full disclosure.
I agree.
I have previously found him funny.
You have found.
He has one or two.
Okay, we can still be friends. It's okay.
Yeah, you're not going to hold that against me.
From a comedian standpoint, when Dane first started out, if you listen to his whole, he's got 5, 6, 7 hours of material out on various CDs and specials and whatever. You could probably go through and find a good hour or two of really well-written, good material in Dane stuff. Even if it's stuff that the genre that I wouldn't like, it might be kind of bro comedy, like frat boy comedy, but you go, oh, that's a well-crafted joke. For me, the majority, and especially his earlier stuff, was a little bit better than his later stuff.
Yeah.
But he started relying on this bravado, that for some reason, like frat boys love him and the girls who date frat boys think he's hot. So it's like he stands on stage and like puffs his chest out and he talks there, he does his thing, and like people think it's great, even though there's no material there half the time.
Yeah.
And I think that what he's great at is he's really good on stage. He's really good at commanding an audience and knowing his audience and just commanding and being a presence in the room, which is part of comedy. I don't think if I read his material in a book, I wouldn't laugh at all. But I see why people are captivated by him when they're on stage live and he's just like doing his thing and he's in your face and he's yelling and screaming and you're like, whoa, this guy's intense.
He's like Hitler.
Exactly.
He's got.
Slightly funnier than Hitler.
Slightly funnier.
But Hitler had the whole like look
better
going
jokes
on.
about Burger King.
So you're saying that Hitler missed his moment as a stand-up comedian?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, these charismatic orators, I mean, for whatever.
I don't know. I think we crossed the comedic law there when we've already invoked Hitler.
No, you just can't invoke Hitler to make an argument for, you're like Hitler. No,
I'm pretty sure there's an unwritten comedic law somewhere.
He's kind of like, anyway, it's not funny. Comedy is very, very personal, right? Like, I'll watch this, like, I love stand-up. I'll go through all of it on Netflix, and I either, like, love it and eat it up, or I'm just like, meh. Like, I don't,
Yeah. And really nowadays depends. There's, they're trying to force a lot of, stuff. I think like Netflix they're on this kick where they're going to do one a week for 52 weeks, right. And then they were going to do a second year of that. And meanwhile, it's like, Bill Burr just did a special last week. Let's give him another one. It's like, did he write an hour of material in a week? No, but who cares? It's Bill Burr. People like him. And it's like, so meanwhile, it's Bill Burr for an hour going, yeah, so what's new? Ladies, women, they're weird. And you're like, wow, did I really need to watch an hour of Bill Burr?
And then he does an impression of his girlfriend/wife.
That's an example of the one.
Or it's like, they're like, oh, we need this demographic of this type of person. Like, so let's find the first comic that can do 10 minutes in LA and give them an hour special. So then you see, okay, well, here's the first, Lithuanian,
amputee,
small, I don't know, like, yeah, exactly. Let's give them a special because they are a demographic. And then, you go, well, that was funny for 3 minutes. Then what did I do for the rest of the other 57? Because they're trying to cram all this stuff out there and throw all this content at us. And meanwhile, it's like you get some really great stuff, but you also get just some stuff that's just garbage. And you're like, this is on Netflix or this is on Amazon or HBO. You're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
There is a lot of crap on Netflix. And it's worse on Amazon. It's worse.
I'm sure it's like in the...
Tig Notaro's special was awesome. Her latest one, where she does like a good portion of it topless, it's fucking amazing. Definitely.
Tig is funny, though.
And Michelle Wolf, I fucking love that woman. Even before the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah. And that was good.
I didn't watch that. I gotta watch it.
You do.
I haven't had time.
You really do. The other thing I was going to ask you, regarding the hashtag, the metoo movement, I was just going to ask you as a comedian. I mean, there's been some fairly prominent comedians that have been touched by...
Phrasing.
They've been touched or they have touched.
Well, some just jacked off in front of people, but
some fairly prominent comedians who have been touched by fairly prominent comedians.
That's right. I was just wondering if you what have you noticed? Like how have you observed that in your experience?
That there's now an arm's reach limit.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, the thing is that I think that there's, and I know this is going to come off really bad, but I speak my mind.
Please do.
I think that there's a little bit in comedy, and I think we saw it with the Al Franken thing. Like we as comics, and I'm sure this happens with other people as well, but I can only speak from comics. We have such a different threshold for what is acceptable and what is funny and what we would, do with each other and say to each other. And I mean, there's things that I would say to friends of mine, male, female, otherwise, comics, that I would never, ever, ever say in public, but I can say to them because they think it's hilarious and they can say some horrible shit back to me and I think it's hilarious because we're used to seeing people crack jokes and try to say weird things and try to be as clever or as off the top as possible or over the top as possible every night on stage. So, when someone's like, oh, women are weird, huh? What's with cats? Like, we're just like, shut up. Yeah. So when your friends are fucking with you backstage or whatever the deal is, you just have a different, like I said, a different threshold for things. So for me, I see a lot of times where stuff that, I'm like, these conversations I've had would be, if somebody transcribed these, that would be like, whoa, but it was completely acceptable, completely completely joking around. And I think we've seen a lot of time, like that stuff happen. and then somebody use it later on to get to, when something bad happens, fallout happens. And the Louis C.K. thing is very strange. And some of it is obviously really not correct, but I also know some of the players involved in that. And that's been one of those things that's kind of like known from everything I've ever known, is that was like just a weird kink that Louis had that everybody knew about. And some of the people involved actually joked about it on stage when it happened. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like, oh, Louis got his dick out again. Ha 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 ha. And I'm not saying that wasn't a defense mechanism and that they weren't doing something to like, that maybe then deep down inside they were like, oh fuck, this is gross. But it's Louis C.K. But it's like, there's a lot of stuff like that where you go, wow, people just are fucking weird and they do weird shit and everyone knows it and it's acceptable. And now I'm talking Bill Cosby drugging and fucking raping people. That's insanity.
It's a bit different.
But like, when you make off-color comments or you pretend to take a picture, you take a picture pretending to touch somebody's tits that you're not actually touching, who you just were probably goofing around with for, 10 weeks on tour.
Yeah.
And you take a picture pretending to touch her tits. Sorry, folks, that is not that, at least that case. I don't know about the other stuff that happened later with Al Franken, but that picture of him pretending, sorry, that's not, in my opinion, that's not fucking sexual harassment or anything like that, especially when all accounts seem to think that everybody was kind of in on that, and that was just the thing they did on the road. Like I said, I've had people, I've passed out and had people take their pictures with their, pull their junk out and take a picture of this in Ian's face. I didn't.
They teabagged you.
I wake up fucking dickhead, knock it off. Quit being an asshole.
Yeah.
But I don't fucking write an article about it and fucking make them leave their job. I mean, you know what I mean? It's in that context. Anyway,
is there? I'm just wondering about like because some people that I've had similar discussions with have talked about how there shouldn't be anything off limits in comedy. Specifically, like, we can totally make rape jokes and we have to make fun of everything. Nothing should be sacred because it's comedy and we need comedy. We need to poke fun at stuff. Nothing is sacrosanct. And what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's nuance to that. I agree and I disagree. I agree on some level that nothing is sacred and nothing should be off limits on some level, but I also don't think the rape thing is weird to me because people say, oh, you should never make rape jokes. Like, well, first off, I don't know that I believe that rape jokes necessarily support a rape culture, but I've never heard anyone ever do a pro-rape joke. And if they did, it wasn't funny and it probably wasn't a joke, so they shouldn't be saying it because it's not fucking funny. But I also rarely hear anyone bitch about guys doing prison rape jokes. Like if a guy said, maybe it's just easy writing and bad comedy.
Yeah.
But no one ever goes, if a guy goes, yeah, so-and-so, watch out, you might get raped in prison. People don't go, I can't believe he did a rape joke. Well, that's a rape joke. Well, because the victim is the guy in this case, so it's okay. I just think that and I've never, what about, what is it? George Carlin did something about, you can never do a rape joke. What about it? Picture a clown raping he did some goofy thing. It was hilarious. He's like, see, that's fucking funny. And it's like, but if you do stuff and just like I've seen, the Daniel Tosh thing. Where it's like, well, was that funny? Was that a joke? Was that, in his case, if you look at the whole thing that happened, he was dealing with a heckler.
Yeah.
And she said something about it. She said, it's not fine, but she said something. So his response was to what she said. And in that case, it was kind of acceptable because she's people have said way worse things to hecklers who are trying to disrupt a show that he's taping for television. But if he had just popped up out of nowhere and be like, hey, what rape joke, rape that girl, you'd be like, well, what the fuck? That's not even funny. And that's not even, that's not even a joke. So in cases like that, like, why would you do that? I don't even understand that. But my point is like, where do we draw the line? And I think if I do religious jokes, religious people will say that's way off, out of bounds. And I should never do that. And religion is sacred. And the thing is they can vote for that by not paying to see my show.
It sounds like what you. Well, it sounds like you really find offensive is jokes that aren't funny.
Yes, and it's funny because one of my favorite lines, Janine Garofalo was on Real Time with Bill Maher a few years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Seth MacFarlane hosted the Oscars?
Yes.
And there was a big thing because he said, "Hello, it's Julianne Moore. I saw your tits, and so I saw your tits," or whatever. And he did a song about how he saw all these women naked, and that was like he did this funny little thing where about all the women. Thank God for all the women we've seen naked that are in the room tonight. And then he did this like Broadway musical about I saw your tits. And it was supposed to be funny. It was pretty dumb. And a lot of people were like,
that MacFarlane is.
Right, exactly. And everyone was like, oh my God, what a stupid. And they were asking, and Janine Garofalo, someone said, well, would you, what about your kids? Like your kids are watching the Academy Awards and here's a guy singing I saw your tits or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? Your kids watching this? And Janine Garofalo goes, well, no, I'm not okay with my kids watching that. She goes, not because he says I saw your tits, but because that's just shitty comedy writing.
I like reading more.
It's like something like, why are your kids watching the Oscars?
Why not?
When there's Paw Patrol?
That's so last year.
Wasn't Janine Garofalo like in an episode of The Simpsons, and she's like, and the only thing she says was, so I got my period today. And that was the whole cameo that she had.
I love her.
Me too.
She voiced somebody like Bart's girlfriend or something, I think.
Oh,
yeah, she did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or was that Sarah Gilbert? I don't know. One of them.
Sarah Gilbert did.
Yeah, they were both on The Simpsons, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people.
They're similar now that I...
Very.
Shit.
Yeah.
Very.
Janine Garofalo, another atheist comedian.
Yes. It's just an interesting conversation to talk about, like, specifically with comedy, because I think it's important. I think satire is really important. I think it's helped myself a lot in this tumultuous political climate we find ourselves in lately. It's really important, and that's honestly how it's the filter through which I get my current events, is through the perspective of the likes of Samantha Bee and John Oliver and Saturday Night Live, specifically Weekend Update, and it's helpful to have that, because otherwise it's really depressing.
Well, the thing too about like with the what's off limits and whatnot is I get this because I make fun of racism a lot. I love making fun of racists in general, but because I do characters and things like that, a lot of times I do it by doing a character that is racist and making them really stupid. I might have a conversation with somebody and be like, and do some kind of racist, and I may say something that is racist in the conversation of the character, or what if it's a sketch or whether it's something I'm doing on stage. And it's like, in order to have the argument, or in order to point out how ridiculous this is or whatever, I'm parodying morons. So, and I'll still get people to go, oh, well, that racist joke you did. It's like, no, it wasn't a racist joke. I was making fun of the racist. Like, you don't even get the difference. And that kind of stuff is really annoying for a comic, because it's like, if you're really anti-racist, you should be applauding what I did, because I'm making fun of racism and pointing out how ridiculous racism is by lampooning this.
Yes.
And you're pissed off at me because I said something while I was pretending to be a racist character. It's like, that's insane. Like that how else am I going to do it? Just go, racism is bad. Laugh. No, it doesn't work that way.
I think, Eli Bosnick kind of explained it on a podcast one time, where there's the difference between a subject and an object of a joke, and like the subject of a joke is racism and the object is the racist, or like the target is the racist. And that the way you formulate your joke tells the people, or should be interpreted the way, if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. I think that it's also comes down to, like you said earlier, if it's good comedy, if it's well written, if it's well crafted, and it makes a point, then I think that's what should be important. I mean, if it's just stupid shock humor, just in order to try to be shocking, it's like, well, what's I mean, there's people always ask me, because I tell people my least favorite type of comedy is shock comedy, because you can't shock me. Like there's probably I can't think of a single thing that you could possibly ever even imagine that would shock me or that would make me go, oh no, gasp, eek, whatever. And I hate shock comedy. I just think it's the lowest form of garbage comedy. And then people go, who's your favorite comic? And I go, Doug Stanhope. And they go, well, he's like the shockingest comic ever. And I go, yeah, but the difference is that Doug Stanhope doesn't try to be shocking. Doug Stanhope is just Doug Stanhope, and he's a brilliant writer, and he makes amazing points with everything he says for the most part, and he's just a phenomenal comic who happens to be a crazy person who does crazy shit. So every joke is about some crazy thing that he did the night before, and he talks the way he talks, and he doesn't apologize for it. So therefore, he's shocking. But he doesn't sit out and go, what words could I say, and what situation could I say that would shock people into laughing? He just says, hey, last night I was at the bar, and I met this, whatever. He tells some crazy ass story, and at the end of it, he's like, and that's why gay people should be able to get married. And you're like, wow, amazing. What a brilliant point. But the journey you went along was like, whoa, what the fuck am I listening to? and that's just because that's fucking Doug Stanhope. And, versus somebody who just like, let's see what I can say to shock the shit out of people and be as vile as possible without any jokes. That stuff is the lowest form of comedy to me.
So how do you deal with hecklers?
A kick in the teeth. No kidding.
That offended me.
I feel like you'd be one of the hecklers.
You're experienced in aggressive snuggling, so
you offended all the classical liberals.
Yes, exactly. You know what's funny is the funny thing is that I just had this thought and this conversation because sometimes somebody says something and you need to shut them down immediately. Sometimes you don't want. Sometimes somebody heckles and they're not trying to be mean. Like a lot of times you get drunk people who think they're helping, or they're actually. I'm not kidding you. Or they're cheering you on.
Right.
Seriously, they'll like yell out something and they'll be like, tee hee hee, that was funny, or they'll go, yes, that's great, you ooh yay, go, and they'll say stuff and it's like, you're interrupting my timing, please. But you don't want to rail into somebody who's loving what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't want to be like, shut the fuck up. You want to be like, you need to tell them quit talking over my punchlines.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're being nice, so you don't want to rail into them. Meanwhile, you have somebody who's like, you suck, fuck you, get off the stage, whatever. Those people you need to shut down quickly because you can't let them take over the show. And the funny thing is, all the stuff that I would never ever say in my act, all the like horrible, easy shock type, if I'm going to do a joke that's, stereotypes or whatever, it's always during that when someone's heckling me. And and here's the thing, it's only because I know that that's what they respond to.
Yeah.
Like a good example is, and I almost hate telling the story to friends because they're like, or especially all my friends who are liberal, because they're always like, I can't believe you said that. Oh my God, but I was doing a show in a liberal Bend, Oregon, and it was a killer show. It was a phenomenal show, and there was one drunk Trump redneck supporter. Trump supporting redneck is what I meant to say. And in the show that we do, it's called one of the tours I do is called Divided Comedy Tour. It's myself and one of my best friends, Ty Barnett, and we talk about race, religion, politics from our two perspectives. That's it. Not like we have vastly different perspectives. We're both liberal guys, but he's black from Chicago. I'm white from Northern California. We're really good friends, but we have a different perspective on race, religion, and politics, right? So how do we talk about these things? How do we joke about these things? And at the end, we go up together, and then we do a little Q&A. So I'm up on stage, and Ty went up first and killed it and just had a great set. I go up on stage, and I'm barely in like 20 minutes into my act, and this guy's just yelling at me, and he's obviously redneck, right-wing, douche guy. And I go, and he goes, why do you like science?
That was really smart.
Super original.
I go, there's a Q&A after. Why don't you save it? That's a great question, sir. I'll answer it later on. I'll answer the question later. Just but right now, let me do my act. And he goes, I asked you a question, faggot. Why do you like science? Oh. And I go, okay, science is the best way we understand. We know to discern fact from fiction. The scientific method is the best way we've derived to determine fact from fiction. And that's why I enjoy science. Does that answer your question? And he goes, fuck you, pussy. And I go, okay, look, dude, if you really want to sit, because then people are like, ooh, I go, if you really want to do that, you can come up on stage and we can see how tough you are. I go, but I don't think you're such a tough case, so why don't you just shut the fuck up? And his friends are like, shut up, man, shut up. So he kind of shuts up, and then I start doing my act again, and then I finish up, and I go, all right, so I'm going to bring Ty back up. And the guy goes, yeah, good, get the fuck off stage. And I go, sir, shut up. And he's like, you answer my question, pussy. And then I go, hey guys, want to bring Ty out? And the crowd starts clapping, and the guy goes, good. He was so much funnier than you. And I go, you know what, sir? That's why we do this show, because we have two different perspectives. That's the point. I said, that's how it is. Not everyone's going to like me. I go, some people like chocolate. Some people like vanilla. And then I point at him, I go, and some people like dick. And I'm not homophobic, but he is.
Right. Yeah.
So his head exploded and he ran out of the room, and everyone applauded that he left. And that's how the show, and then we went on and did our show together. But it's like, I would never say some stupid homophobic joke like that, but it worked for this guy, because it's like, this guy's homophobic and he's calling me faggot and pussy and all these kind of things. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shut this guy up now. And it worked perfectly, and everyone laughed, and he left the room. And, but it's like, I feel bad saying those things, but I'm like, that's how you got to deal with people if that's their mindset, you got to go with their mindset,
Yeah, you got to meet them where they are.
That's funny.
Get down to their level.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would be so bad at this though, because I wouldn't be able to make it funny. I would just get mad, and then that's not funny, and that's just you getting entrenched,
That's just practice though. I mean, it would just be, you have to learn how to do it eventually. And
I think I'd just be shitty at it. That's why I'm a physicist.
Well, sometimes they say stuff that you just have no idea how to respond to. You're just like, what? What the hell did you just say?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, like, why do you like science? Like, what kind of heckling is that? Like, that's the weirdest.
Not even a heckle. It's just a dumb question.
It's bizarre. Like, how do you deal with that? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so off the top that sometimes you just get frozen in your tracks, and you're like, how do I respond to this? Like, was that a negative thing? Is this guy, like, is he seriously asking, does he never read a science book? Like, I don't know what this guy, I don't know. Like, that kind of stuff is funny, because sometimes it derails you, and you just don't, you don't know what to do in the moment. But, but you always have to be in charge. That's the one thing.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's very interesting.
It is interesting.
That seems like a good place to end it. Thanks for joining us, Ian. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Where can people find more of your stuff?
Well, if you, I currently have an hour special on Amazon and iTunes and all that, but it just went to Amazon Prime this week.
Okay.
And it's called Extraordinary. It's obviously play on the word extraordinary, but it's from the Extraordinary Claims Require Extraordinary Evidence. And I have another one that should be coming back out. It was released in 2014 called Critical in Thinking. It was also up on all the sites, but I just recently got pulled down because the distributor went out of business. So I got it back, and I own all the rights to it again, and I'm putting it back up. So that should be back up too. But watch, Extraordinary is really good. It's new. It's a little more mainstream. Critical in Thinking is a little harsh, and it's one of those ones where you either absolutely love it or you absolutely hate it. And if you're a religious person, you will not like Critical in Thinking at all. And then you can find me. My website is ianharriscomedian.com or skepticcomedian.com. They both go to the same place. And then, find me on Facebook and Twitter and all those things, and friend me, and I'll friend you back, or whatever you do these days.
You just friend all the people?
Whatever the young kid, do you Snapchat?
Yeah.
You do?
No. I'm still trying to figure out Vine.
Fine.
It's so gone already. Oh, man.
You remember that? Remember Vine?
There you go.
Yeah. What about
it was a thing for like 10 minutes.
what's that thing that used to exist and people had them? They all had a web page way before Facebook.
MySpace.
Yeah.
MySpace.
It's gonna be a thing.
How about before MySpace? Friendster.
Friendster.
I never had a
Apparently,
Friendster.
it's still a thing.
Is that right?
Is it?
Yeah,
Do you
there's
guys
like, there's like 500 users. But
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
You know there's going to be some kind of digital hipster that's going to be bringing back Friendster.
exactly.
Do you guys remember?
Well, actually, there's no digital hipster. Start that website right now.
So
Let's get that fucking domain.
So is that a dip stat? Is that a dipster?
A dipster.
Dipster.
A digster. Maybe.
Digital hipster. I that's got to be taken already. That's too juicy.
It sounds like
I have my moments of brilliance.
Yeah. Just synth. Only synth for that band.
Do you guys remember?
Nice.
Do you guys remember going over to somebody's house and knocking on the door and being like, "Is so and so fucking home?" And that's how you fucking communicated, and that was it. That was all there fucking was.
Yeah.
Like,
Because your parent or your brother was on the phone.
right. Or you could call, but then you'd have to talk
was
to their
busy.
mom, and they'd have to put it down, and then they'd probably be listening. You know, you never know.
You couldn't mute.
No, it wasn't a shit.
You have to set it down or
Yeah.
cover it with your hand.
Yes, exactly.
We're old.
Good times. We are so old.
We're not that old. Things have just changed quickly. Fuck you.
Sure, that's what you.
Aren't you in like your 50s?
Shut up.
She's looking good if she's in her 50s.
I'm looking good if I'm in my
I
30s.
didn't say
That
she
too.
wasn't.
All right. Thanks, Ian, again for joining.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and glad we finally with my computer we got this thing together via MySpace. Almost how far we had to go back to get
That's
this
right.
That's right.
Thank you, MySpace, for bringing us together.
That's right.
Thanks, guys.
Right
All right,
on.
take care.
I'm going to do a book excerpt.
Okay.
Do it.
This is like, yeah, we haven't done one in a little while, but this is from a book called Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates. Throughout the book, she tells us stories from women who have written in to the Everyday Sexism Project about what types of sexism they're dealing with, how they deal with it, and how it makes them feel. The piece I'm going to read is from the last chapter.
Does it ever make them feel good?
Everyday awesome
I don't
sexism?
think you want me to answer that question.
No?
I'm bothering. I'm picking on you like a jerk.
So, yeah, I'm going to read
I'm
it
being a
from the
jerk
last
like
chapter.
Bruce Bolton.
Killing his whole family.
Yeah. So this bit struck me as important because in these conversations, men get very defensive and feel like they can't help or even like they don't want to discuss the subject. And this little bit, I think, also provides a little bit of hope and a bit of an idea of how to change the way society treats women. So this is it. It's happening everywhere. Don't think that you can hide because you can't. Don't think that you can opt out. You're either with us or you're against us. There is no in-between because it's the in-between that has been the problem for so long. The people who discriminate against us, who scream at us in the street, who grope us at work, who attack us and abuse us and assault us, they're bullies. And bullies flourish only in an environment where their victims are weakened by isolation, where there's no supporting ourselves because there's no support to be had. But a bully loses his strength like a candle being snuffed out when the rest of the school stands up and links arms with the victim. There's no sitting on the fence because sitting on the fence is turning a blind eye. Even if you don't mean to or didn't realize you were until now, it doesn't make you bad or wrong. You just hadn't noticed sexism before. It doesn't mean that you're part of the problem. It means that now you can be part of the solution. We need you. We need you to stand with us. We can't do it without you. You can't achieve victory that requires a culture shift from a whole society without half of that society on board. But more, this is for you too. It's for everybody who wants to live in a fair society, for the men who want fair paternity leave and hate the Diet Coke ad, which is referenced earlier in the book, and the aunts and uncles and mothers and brothers and grandpas of all those little girls who deserve to grow up in a world where the horizons aren't limited and stunted and constrained to the number of inches around their stomachs. It's for the boys who deserve to cry when they need to, without being reprimanded and masculinized and forced into muscular, angry straitjackets. The thing about sexism is that it's an eminently solvable problem. Unlike so many of the other major issues facing our society, which demand huge amounts of money or medical research or legislation to fix, the answer is already within our reach. The Everyday Sexism Project set out to resolve the problem, but to force people to recognize that it is real. Set out not to resolve the problem, but to force people to recognize that it is real. I can't point to a single practical political change or a missing law that will make everything right, because it's not that clear-cut. But again and again in the past 4 years, I've seen change happen. I've seen what success looks like, and it's really very simple. Because all the different issues that the project has exposed, sexism, harassment, assault, rape, are so closely connected, so too are the methods of resolving them. By creating a cultural shift in attitudes and behaviors towards women, we would take a huge step towards tackling each of those problems. Whether it's in the professional, media, domestic, or social sphere, by making it unacceptable to disrespect and belittle and dehumanize women in one world, we immediately shift their status in another. But it truly does not have to be a team effort. Does have to be a team effort. It's a bit like recycling. It's something every single person can make an active, practical contribution to, starting today, if they choose. But just like recycling, a few well-meaning people going all out and doing everything in their power to make it work won't make a jotted difference overall if everybody else carries on shrugging their shoulders and tossing the milk carton into the bin. So be the person in the meeting who objects to an applicant being dismissed because she is a maternity risk. Be the aunt or uncle who buys his niece a chemistry set and her nephew a toy stove. Be the picture editor who doesn't illustrate every article with a pair of women's legs. Be the teenager who challenges his friends when they're out calling girls sluts. Be the colleague who points out inappropriate behavior when it occurs. Be the TV exec who commissions a program with 5 female leads. Be the guy who tells his friend it's not cool to shout at women in the street. Be the advertising director who thinks outside the box. Be the person at the bus stop who steps in to stop harassment. Be the parent who teaches their son about consent. What we need is a change in ideas and inherited assumptions, and that is something everyone can contribute to. Enough is enough.
That's good.
I like that. Although it seems weird me reading that, but it's still, I think it
seems pretty woke.
Passage as read by Cory Johnson.
Passage as read by Cory Johnson. All right. So listener feedback.
Lots?
We have a little bit.
Yeah?
I'm going to say we've had some great listener interaction on Twitter.
Good.
I want to thank at Jesse Hoffner and at HBOUFO, also known as Atheist Housekeeping, for the encouragement. I'm glad we have listeners who like the show and appreciate the work we do. Not a ton of feedback on Facebook, but we did have a few comments on a couple articles, mainly the one about the end of the world coming in June. So it got a lot of comments that were like, another one or again. So,
yeah. Remember to get your card stamped.
Yeah, that's right. We also had some weird YouTube stuff. We got a comment on the Side Thorn and Conspiracy Granny video from Reality Check 123, who said, Side Thorn is an agent to make people that investigate these staged shootings look crazy and unstable.
They don't need help.
Totally. That's the exact kind of thing a not crazy and stable person would say. Also, Goth Life just said, Sandy hoax! Exclamation mark. So
I don't know if they're joking or not.
They're not. That's the trouble. If you need to check out our videos, remember that we need you to check out our videos. And if you like them, then make sure to hit the thumbs up. And that increases exposure and also tells people that it's worth watching. No new patrons. But in the month of April, we almost made enough money off of the show to pay for our studio session. So we need another $50 a month to make that happen.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I made just about $200 last month.
That's pretty wicked.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
It really is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, patrons.
And
Thank you, patrons.
On an unrelated note, my rate is going. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll be quite literally
Coincidence.
That'll be quite literally the moment after. It's like, guess what, guys? I just made enough to pay for the studio.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention that.
That's pretty funny.
Dave. Oh, no.
Just kidding.
So yeah, that leaves us about $50 a month short of paying for the studio time every month. So by all means, be a patron of the show and help us pay for the studio. I also want to mention that the first 2 episodes this month were free. They were old content. They were the talks from the conference, which we kind of already got paid for when we put the conference on. So I didn't want to charge anybody for them. So yeah, it just seemed uncool to charge people for the first 2 episodes here.
Everyone should listen to those anyway. That was really some of those are really compelling speakers.
Yeah, like the two I produced were the ones that haven't been on YouTube yet. Levada Leaning and Will Arnell. I think we still have one speaker that hasn't been on YouTube, and then I'm on to the ones that have been.
Will is less flashy, but more brilliant than probably all the other ones.
Yes, he's quite brilliant.
He's amazing.
His talk was really good.
Yeah.
I want to thank our top patrons. Bassett, Destin, doesn't suck that much. Bob Glenn.
That's amazing.
Daryl Goosen, Aaron Young, William Driver, and Positively Skeptical. If you want to be a top patron, then you can go to patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. We have no new iTunes reviews or reviews on Facebook, but we like those reviews. We like 5-star reviews.
Please review us.
Please review us.
Yeah.
Make a list of who you like the best from last to first.
Please don't do that. I put a lot of work in this.
Cory has to be the best every time.
That bubble that Cory's got there.
Put a lot of work into this.
I'm trying to get them to make lists because we
Cory's
like lists.
the worst thing on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, some of the YouTube comments did not like me on the Sam Harris thing.
Except for the ones that didn't.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't read them. I only read the ones about me.
I deleted a lot of comments.
What did they say about you?
Oh,
give us the dirt, dude. Give us a summary.
We're a little bit curious.
mostly like typical lefty.
Blah, blah.
Blah, you're boring. Fuck off.
Have we before my time? Did you guys ever have like online questions that you tried to answer, like rather than supporter questions?
I put out the word a little bit for an AMA, and we never got enough questions to worry about.
Okay. But I guess now we're in a couple different mediums that might be that might give us some questions we could try to address.
Yeah, maybe someday.
Assuming it's not just like, have you tried looking outside?
Well, I mean, Ian Bushfield did give us a good question, but I thought having one question seemed like a pretty pointless AMA. So,
Well, not even that. I just mean we could talk about it at the end of the show sometimes.
Yeah.
If we get, like said, questions on YouTube or Facebook worth answering.
Yeah. YouTube sucks. Like, actually, our Sam Harris Ezra Klein discussion has like 4,500 views now.
Holy fuck.
Whoa.
So,
is that the biggest one?
yeah, oh yeah. That blows all our videos out of the water.
Okay.
Well,
What the hell?
Oh, there's some lessons to be learned in that for marketing, right? Like,
Yeah,
like that.
that's right.
Lisa doesn't have as much free time as she says she does.
Why?
How many times did you watch that video?
Never. I just looked at the
500
comments
times.
trying to find ones that insulted me, and all people did was said I talk too much and interrupt too much. I'm like, fuck, it's true. That's all I could find.
I really
Cory
tried to delete
pared
the
down the really
worst
mean
of them.
ones.
Like, I really tried. Anything that was like blatantly insulting to anybody, I was like, no, fuck off. Like, although I feel like I should have deleted anything that started off with that woman.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like, okay, sorry. you're gone too.
We will take your criticism a little more seriously if you can remember our name.
Or even
whatever.
just like,
it is what it is.
even just like be like, okay, so I disagree with the person who was saying this, or the you know,
instantly they make themselves in.
That woman talks too much. Well, fuck off, dude. Like,
if you were a woman, you'd be more used to that kind of shit, Cory.
yeah, that's probably true. But that doesn't make it okay.
I agree. I'm just saying.
All right. So plugging stuff. Watch our YouTube videos. Give us thumbs up, for fuck's sakes.
All of the thumbs.
Give us your thumbs.
Otherwise, the bad
like
people
how
will
Ramsey
thumbs us
Bolton
down.
took thumbs.
That's right. Otherwise, the bad people
Another
will thumbs us down.
appendages.
I've been trying to put out a lot of videos and extra episodes. And at kind of an unsustainable rate. When I've had time, I've been doing like all the work. So it's going to slow down at some point. So
that's okay. That's okay.
Expect I will have a new Hardcore Skeptic episode out soon. Gumby and I haven't worked on Positively Skeptical in a bit, and he's taking a break from skeptical activism in general. But I'm hoping that I can figure out something else to keep that show going. And of course, I'll be rebroadcasting those to on the Brainstorm feed. Anybody else have anything to plug?
Nope.
How'd your Etsy store thing go?
It went okay. It wasn't a very busy sale, but I sold a couple.
Cool.
So
it's better than zero.
Better than zero. Thank you, Lisa, for supporting my creative shit.
She sold more than a couple. It wasn't like me and someone else.
It was like
10. So
10.
I was at work.
Let's round that to a dozen.
It's okay.
I was at work. I shared the thing.
I noticed, and
but
I appreciate that.
But I didn't.
You know, I was talking to other sellers I knew from that one, and one girl I know said she didn't even sell enough to make back her table fee. Like she made like $20 or something.
I know.
It wasn't busy.
Yeesh.
So
it wasn't very busy.
Yeah. So
I feel like
it
a
was
podcaster.
Well, it was a
Right?
beautiful day, and it was a craft fair indoors. So
Yeah.
I think it was just hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I got my mom a birthday present.
I looked at your Etsy store and I was going to order something, but some of the stuff you had on your table isn't in the Etsy store.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I pretty much put stuff in my Etsy store, and then like all the stuff that I had was like done the day before.
Right.
And I tried to put stuff on Etsy, but it's such a lengthy process
Yeah.
that it takes you like half an hour to
like-
add one item.
I've been trying to create an email list for the podcast so
yeah.
that whenever if somebody wants to, they can subscribe to our email list and then they get an email when I update the website.
That's right.
And it's a fucking mission and a half. Like, fuck off. This is not going to happen soon.
No.
Don't I get emails? Oh, from Patreon.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I mean,
That's a different thing.
Should we just have a phone list where we can split them out?
I could actively phone everybody who listens to the show faster than I could get things on and mailed.
So
robocalls from Cory, maybe?
Yeah.
no, not robocalls. They'll be be very personal.
Yeah.
I was like, oh
So you're
man,
driving to work, right? Like
Yeah.
you get a long drive.
Hey, new update on the website this morning. Hey, check out the website.
I feel like that could be really awkward when they pick up. It's like, is that you, Cory?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
Cory.
me.
Calling you again this week.
Did you see that update yet?
Why the fuck not?
Make sure to check out the website.
Heck yeah.
Do it, Cory.
Yeah, well, I mean, sure. Send in your phone numbers. I'll call you.
Like I said, we'll split it up, and
Yeah,
we're pretty sure we get best feedback either from Angela or Lisa.
yeah, that's right. So for everything else, you can check out the show notes at brainstormpodcast.com or our website, brainstormblog.net. Thank you to all our financial supporters. Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Bassett, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob Glenn, Destin doesn't suck that much, Magnus, Michael. Oh, that's not supposed to say Michael. That's supposed to say a bunch of small free animals hiding in a cave or something like that.
In a coat, isn't it?
No, it's in a cave. I'm sure it's in a cave.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It seems a lot less funny though.
But it was like several small. The point is that it's long and it's several small animals hiding in a cave or something. Anyway, sorry, Michael, I didn't get to it this time around. Positively Skeptical and Rob. And if you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can also support us by donating to our GoFundMe for our conference. That link is in the show notes. Or you can buy stuff at our TeePublic store, which is also, the link is in the show notes. You can join us every second week when we broadcast live on brainstormradio.net. Our next show is on May 27th, and our guest will be, or 25th. God, my dates are bad. Our guest will be Bob Nygaard, the psychic investigator.
Oh, no.
He actively investigates psychics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You thought he does investigations with psychic powers.
Yeah.
I would not promote somebody like that.
You know what? I would grill a psychic investigator.
That might be an all right episode, actually. I want to thank Ian again for joining us. You can find more of his stuff at ianharriscomedian.com. Thanks to Dave for cool new intro music.
Word.
Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from the Embrace the Void podcast for doing the new voiceover for the intro. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Kapper-Murdoch. I didn't cue that outro music.
Whoops.
You didn't.
There we go. Thanks to Alex Kapper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, or follow us on Twitter. Share the show and spread the word. For live listeners, stick around for the after show. You can go to brainstormafterhours.com and listen to the bonus content before it goes patron only. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast, with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.